Sarvebhayo Namo Namaha. I am Kushi, volunteer at Sanskrit Club, IIT Roorkee. It's an honor for me to introduce the speaker of today's guest lecture, Udaya Shreyas NJ. He is a renowned Sanskrit scholar, multilingualist, yogi, and educator devoted to learning and teaching the language of gods for over a decade now. He is also the founder and the creative director of the popular YouTube platform, the Sanskrit channel. He incorporates innovative techniques such as music, storytelling, and animation to make learning Sanskrit an enjoyable experience by explaining the complex concepts in simple and engaging manner. On the academic side, he has done his bachelor's in electronics and communication from Birla Institute of Technology and Science and has worked in corporate sector for 3 years. Worked with the companies such as Broadcom, Synopsys, and Google. Later on, he quit his job to pursue spiritual sadhana with the Isha Foundation in Coimbatore, which he continues until today. I thank you, sir, for your precious time, and I hope all of you welcome him with a big round of applause.
Namaskar. Am I audible clearly?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, especially Dr. Soham. I'm hoping he's here. I've not seen him, so namaskaram. Thank you so much, the Sanskrit Club. I have had the pleasure of interacting with some of you a couple of days ago. It's wonderful to be among you today, to share some of my ideas on the topic of today's talk. Before we get started, I'd like to start with a quick invocation. Vagarthaviva samprukto Vagartha pratipattaye Jagatah pitarau vande Parvati parameshwarau. अस्तु अद्य अहं चिन्तितवान् किञ्चित् आङ्ग्लभाषायाम् एव भवतु अस्माकं सम्भाषणमिति। अत्र अहं जानामि अत्र सन्ति जनाः ये संस्कृतम् अवगन्तुं शक्नुवन्ति, परन्तु अग्रे गत्वा यदि वयं संस्कृतविषयान् इतोपि चर्चितुं वा प्रयतामः तदा संस्कृतसम्भाषणं भवतु अस्मिन् मध्ये। इदानीम् अद्य अहम् आङ्ग्लभाषायाम् एव वदामि। So I'll keep this interaction today in Sanskrit. Thank you so much once again for the opportunity to interact with you guys and quickly present what I think is going to be the future of Sanskrit and where we have come from, where I see that, where I see this going. Quickly about myself, thank you so much for the introduction. As she said, I see myself a little bit in you guys because I had gone through engineering, and some of those principles stay with me until today in terms of going through analytics, looking at how content can become better in terms of seeing what somebody like me who had in the past who had some introduction to what Sanskrit had to offer, but was not exactly sure of what it is that is present, what is the best way to reach out to them. So I carry those learnings with me. But yes, I've had a slight deviation from the usual path of progress that that an engineering graduate has, mainly because of that exposure to Sanskrit and the literature of Sanskrit, Patanjali Yoga Sutras especially, and that led me towards a new exploration of a completely different branch of study and exploration that I was unaware of. And since then, I have been learning Sanskrit for myself. I have been teaching it in various ways. And for the past 4 years, I have been making content digitally and putting it up on YouTube. And a little bit of a minor flex, we are reaching 1 million subscribers soon. And it's been a very fulfilling journey in many ways, both internally in terms of the reach, the amount, the impact of my work, and monetarily in terms of worldly success, and in terms of what I can pursue as my interest and my work in the world. So I thought I'll quickly talk about 5 points. We'll keep this as 5 different points, step by step, in today's talk. First is the scientificness of Sanskrit. As cliche as this topic is, as many misconceptions there are uh, about UFOs and flying vimanas and all the whatever else there is about it, to actual scientificness of the language itself. I wanted that to be the first point to cover, and from there we'll go to the eternity of language and literature, because this is a language with this particular adjective called sanatana, which means timeless, which is eternal. So what makes it eternal? Why is it eternal? Is it even relevant in today's time? So that will be our second point to think about. The next point is the richness of literature. What value can it add in today's life? Is it continuing upon that second point of it being eternal? What is it that is actually present in it? Then the fourth point would be what exists today as exploratory options. I know you guys had talks with multiple professors and different kinds of tool builders, app builders, who have been doing tremendous work in Sanskrit related fields. So what is going on right now in the field of Sanskrit? And finally, we'll go to what can be, the future of Sanskrit content exploration, presenting it. So these are the 5 quick points. But first point, scientificness of Sanskrit. The claims are many, right? So it can cure this, it can cure that. It is the most conducive for programming. There are many claims, but the scientificness of Sanskrit, in my opinion, can be felt right in its alphabet, right? Most of you might already be aware of this, that the very way the alphabet of Sanskrit is structured is completely in tune with how our vocal cavities are. From the vowels, the ach, swara, from a, e, a being the first, and step by step, then the dirgha a, and then e. So it comes from the pit of the throat slowly at the origin of the vocal cavity to the end, and the same thing goes with the consonants. So and this continues to Maheshwara Sutras, which forms the fundamental basis of all grammatical exploration, to Ashtadhyayi, which is kind of the pinnacle of all grammatical texts that are out there. So from the get go, it is very aware of how the human physiology is. It is an extremely thought out, well planned language. We are speaking right now. Unfortunately, English has become the lingua franca of everybody. It's for whatever reasons. But if we look at the very structure of the alphabet, the grammar, and then go towards what kind of literature that exists, what is it that was an outpouring of such refined process of thought, we then see that this scientificness, this level of detail in perception, gave rise to many other fields of study, which then in themselves are so profound in, once again, refining how deeply we perceive the human situation, be it physically in terms of Ayurveda and Chikitsa and Rasayana Shastras, be it a little more spiritually in terms of how the human body has come about, what are the karmendriyas, jnanendriyas, what are the panchatattvas that came to that resulted in the creation of this, what is the relationship between this human physiology and the creation at large. So these kind of spiritual pursuits and the terminology there too is quite scientific, even if it's not really might not pass the stamp of Western scientific pursuit. even there exists a keen sense of observation and perception, and this is where the entire language originates from, that scientificness of the very alphabet. The invocatory shloka, that's why I chose it today. I chose it for many of my courses as well. Vak and Artha, the interconnectedness between what is uttered and what is implied by that utterance, right? So these two, Kalidasa says, this is a shloka by Mahakavi Kalidasa. He says, uh, they are inseparable. If you want to utter something, mean something, the sound you employ to do that is there. That is the sound. If you want to mean something, this is the sound you use to mean it. And if you utter this sound, this is the sound that is inherent within it. I hope all of you guys are, somewhat aware of it. Um, there are many examples of this. The sound g denotes movement, or gamana, or gati. So that is why it is a bija mantra for Ganapati. And this, let me not go too much into the spiritual aspect of it, but like I said, gati, gamana, uh, Ganga, the word is the one who moves swiftly. And khaga, the sound kha represents space. So that is why sukha is being in a good space and happiness. Dukkha is being in a bad space, and that is why it denotes sorrow. And khaga is something that moves through space. So on top of this physical correlation between the alphabet and the vocal cavity, there is this correlation between what is uttered and what is implied. And this is why the fundamentals of Sanskrit, being clear with the pronunciations, are of absolute importance when it comes to pursuing Sanskrit further. So this, with this understanding, with the help of many grammatical texts and like Ashtadhyayi and Yaska's Nirukta, there are many such texts which help us explore this interconnectedness of Vak and Artha in a very, very fundamentally interconnected sense. And this takes us to the second point of what makes the language eternal, right? So there is this usual complaint in the world that Sanskrit is a stagnant language. It does not borrow vocabulary from other languages as malleably as perhaps English or any other regional language that we use does. But it need not. It has the entire structure done in such a way. The grammar and the ingredients of grammar are so complete that whatever we want to denote or address or imply in the world, there exists the ingredients and the instructions to make a word from those ingredients, right? So, and this is with respect to creating terminology for modern day use cases. But when it comes to the internal faculties of manas, buddhi, ahankara, chitta, and the different um, sadhana that one does, how to keep oneself within, right? There are many, many, many paths of spiritual pursuit that emerged out of this land, not getting too technical once again into all of those. This is the language which therefore enables all of such pursuits, and the human nature being what it is throughout time, and the motives that drive us, the fear, our fears, our greed, our contempt, our pursuits, the purusharthas being same throughout time. As long as we are the way we are, Sanskrit stays relevant and eternal. So there exists such so from here we go towards the richness of literature that exists. So the abundant, vast ocean of knowledge that has been passed down to us. Unfortunately, I was also of the same misconception that Sanskrit texts and Sanskrit knowledge is something that has been lost with time. It is not something which is which exists anymore to access or which is relevant. I thought I was of the same opinion before, but from the Yoga Sutras to the Brahma Sutras, the principles of Jyotisha, which very tragically is implied as some kind of pseudoscience. I've made videos around this. To principles of Agama, what makes the temples the way they are, why we construct such magnificent pieces of architecture the way they are. And it's not just visual aesthetic, there is enormous science behind it. We still keep discovering structures that were done with such precision yet at such huge scale, right? You can either do something so precisely and keep it small, and go to zero tolerance printing of something, or if when you want to reduce error and be precise with something, you can only do it at such scale. But these structures with the principles of agama and jyotisha and vastu um, are done at such huge humongous scale because there was an understanding which was deeper. Unfortunately, because of market forces, because of selling something quickly, just give quick remedies to solution to people's problems, these kinds of sciences, be it jyotisha, be it tantra, be it vastu, be it ayurveda, have been reduced to some kind of you know uh, gharelu nuskhe. What do they call them? Like kitchen remedies. So that's what we think of, right? We think of Ayurveda, we think, oh, it's some grandma kitchen remedies. But hopefully this is not an audience which has similar opinions, but this is the opinion in the world. So there exists across all these fields of study enormous amount of literature which is relevant throughout time, because the language is so scientific, which led to such explorations in the language which are scientific. So this is how these 3 points tie in together. This is a language which the very word Samskrita, the dhatus within Samskrita, Samyak Kritam iti Samskritam, that which has been well thought out, well planned, well organized, is Sanskritam. So I am talking about this with such um, love, and I really love this. When my eyes were open to this kind of abundance of wealth that exists, I thought, where what was I doing all throughout my life? So I find enormous pleasure in exploring it for myself, learning new things. So my journey of Sanskrit, my study of Sanskrit started with conversational Sanskrit by Samskrita Bharati. Sambhashana Shibirani Gatavan Chalaitavancha Bahuni. So after conducting many spoken Sanskrit classes, getting a little more fluent with the language, because I started late, as I'm guessing with many of us here. So we are not the same stock as Gurukula students. They have a little bit of advantage over us, but we as engineers have unique capabilities, which helped me create this, a group of uh, Sanskrit enthusiasts, passionate people who, it's been 4 years, but the journey has been very fulfilling. And as we reach close to 1 million people who are interested, trust me, I guess this is again not news to you guys, that most of the world knows that there is something valuable in Sanskrit. There's something which is there, which is hidden, which is very valuable, which they want to get. But what they find difficulty with is in accessing the authentic sources without committing either 2 years, 4 years, 12 years of their lifetimes in their study. The attention spans the way they are, they want something quick, but they know that there is something valuable. So this is where all of this, all the study that I had, the engineering background, and I could, whoever made the thumbnail for today's YouTube live stream, beautiful job, thank you so much. So all of this, right, working with uh, the modern software applications, so all of that kind of helped me present Sanskrit from all these aspects, the scientificness of it, the eternality of it, the the richness and the vastness of it, picking topics. I am at a uniquely blessed space where I will never run out of content to present on channel. It's there for me to just dig and dig and dig and learn for myself and present. But coming to the fourth point, which is what are the ways in which it is being currently presented to the world? All of the topics, the third point, the richness and the vastness of literature, it needs to be presented properly. It cannot stay the same way it is, that we either just say, okay, this is, I am the authority on this, so trust my word on it, this is how it is. If Guru Graha is the Guru Graha, this, then if the Shani Graha is the Shani Graha, this is what it is, take my word for it. You have to present them what that planetary body is, while being very sure within yourself that graha and planet are not the same. Because when we have such misconceptions within ourselves, that is when we can't kind of stand true to, true to a test. When somebody asks, oh, you say you have 9 planets, but Pluto is no longer a planet, or you say there are these 2, Rahu and Ketu, they are not even celestial bodies. But a graha, again, this was so obvious when just looked at it, that graha and grahaka, grahana, so that which exerts an influence, anugraha, vigraha. So to grab, or to that is the English word there, that is the connection, right? Grinhati, that is the verb form. That which exerts an influence, that which holds an influence, is a graha. So in that sense, of course, sun is a graha, moon is a graha. You can't say, oh, these are not this. One is a satellite, one is a star. How can you be so short-sighted? And what kind of pseudoscience is this, that you think grahas are planets? Right? So we need to be very clear in our concepts of what these sciences are, where they originate from, what their scope of work is, what their limitations are, and how to make use of them, and how to present them. I have been making these kinds of videos. Most people have been, this slowly and surely, more and more people, as they are getting aware of it, their thinking is growing beyond um, looking down upon such subjects as worthless. These kinds of topics, these kinds of studies are happening. We have our own colonial hangovers to get over, uh, but surely, and at this time, what exists are all these video consumption platforms. Definitely, except from few academic circles, people have not been reading books any longer. You either listen to a podcast, watch some animation, but that is what we currently are at. So I made a video on explaining the concept of time, because it's not just mathematical, gimmicks to just count time to a certain extent, either macroscopically grow, counting years and yugas and mahayugas, or going microscopically. People wouldn't do just this as some sort of uh, menial exercise. They would have done this because there was some perception of phenomena happening at that time, so they needed a unit of measure at that minuteness or at that macroscopic scale. So what led towards that measurement? How did people even measure time? And then what the ecliptic is? And most of these are presented as stories, right? Either the sun uh, running across the skies, driving his 7-horsed chariot on with just one wheel. All of these are very symbolic. These kind of knowledge systems have been passed down to us in a very dialectical way. So to which, and I don't want to complain too much about it, because it makes it very beautiful and very emotional to relish and to enjoy and to connect with as our own. So these stories are beautiful, but to also see the real world application of it, to think in that abstract terms of what is that real world application of it. If the moon is said to have 27 wives, the nakshatras, and he favors one of them, or if fire, Lord Agni, is said to have 7 tongues, and each of those tongue has a name, and he is sarva bhakshaka. He gobbles up everything. So all these stories, what do they mean? What do they signify? While making sure that we don't peddle limited understandings of it ourselves, making use of dictionaries and tools once again, which have come up. Professor Amba Kulkarni and many other universities, I'm sure, have come up with very useful dictionaries. Um, we don't have to go back to the huge granthas anymore and flip through them. Just if you want to look up a word, it's there. So there are two kinds of efforts that are currently ongoing. I would uh, I would like to draw an analogy with the business world, where there are B2B products, which is there are people who are working towards generating content which is helpful for other scholars. So anybody who wants, so either building repositories of texts, digital libraries, be it making morphological analyzers where you input a word and you get the entire grammatical structure of it, the sutras behind it, or sandhi splitters, transliterators, all sorts of digital tools which are which are scholar to scholar, right? There are many kinds of tools that are coming up. So that is one of the works that is current. The second is B2C, where a scholar is presenting it directly to the or to an audience. And this is a place, both of these have a huge gap. Um, there are very few people who are doing both these works, and I'm really glad when I heard that from Dr. Soham that there is an IKS division that is coming up, that's in plans for IIT Roorkee. Uh, but this scholar to B2C, where you present it directly, there are these tools currently which are the creative suite of Adobe. You can make a video, you can make an animation, you can present the sun moving along the ecliptic with reference to the earth, and then explain why uh, each month in Sauramana calendar is named as such. Which what are these nakshatras in today's astronomy? What kind of, why is it that they are said to exert such kind of influences? Where does all that study come from? These can be presented in a very, very visually appealing fashion, which was not possible before, and this can reach people at scale. So this is where we stand today, where we either make neuro-linguistic programming tools to translate better, or we can make different kinds of dictionaries where you hover over a word and a Sanskrit word, and it opens up all the dhatus and the upasargas, pratyayas present in it. There are people working towards it, and there is also this other domain of work, Sanskrit work, that is happening today, where you present this content directly to the public. And the first one, I don't know how much scope of success there is monetarily and in terms of internal satisfaction. But for the second, where you are the face of these knowledge systems out there to the public, the scope of success is enormous. Enormous. Trust me. I've been in the job roles, the usual traditional job roles that some of you guys might be, those who are not academically inclined, might be hoping for. But fulfilling somebody else's vision and finding your own roots and pursuing that, understanding it deeper and relating with it, they hit different. It's very, very different. And while having much more scope of being successful in your own pursuits. As some of you might know this person called Naval Ravikant. I like his insights into the business world. He's an venture capitalist, Indian born, settled in the US. He says content and coding are infinitely scalable products, that once you put your effort into it, the amount of return that you have on your effort, the scaling factor there is infinite. You can, depending on the quality of your output, you can reach as many people as you possibly can, the entire planet. So my reason behind being here is a little selfish also. I want more people to be in this, more youngsters, more people who understand this, these who are at the frontiers of modern technological platforms, who know how to build 3D models, who know how to create um, good thumbnails, make better videos, because that's what many people are also hoping for. Right now, the craze is about being YouTubers and reaching people. Uh, so I want a vibrant community of young, enthusiastic Sanskrit speaking Shastras, understanding youth who can be the face of these knowledge systems to the public. And that is where we stand. And most of you, from this, we go to point five, which is where do we go? So the title for today's talk was From Vedic Texts to Virtual Reality. All of you again know that ours was a tradition which was very verbal, very oral tradition where there was a lot of sanctity given to these knowledge systems. So, and there was a lot of care taken so that they don't get, you know, jumbled up or diluted when they pass through generations. So from these knowledge systems being passed on from generation to generation uh, uh, by gurus sitting under a tree and presenting them to the public to these technologies and tools which enable us to reach millions of people at scale at once overnight. We have come a long way in terms of transmitting what we hold as knowledge. Um, and this has only been growing. You might again be very aware of this trend that content consumption with the penetration of internet and digital devices in everybody's hands is just skyrocketing, and it's the next decade it can grow 10x to 50x is what they're predicting. So when content consumption is happening rampantly like this, what kind of content out there is there, and how much of it reflects our understanding and our knowledge systems that have been passed down to us, and how well they are presented and how relatable they are, how immediately graspable, tangible they are, is within our hands. And as these content consumption platforms become more and more immersive, there really is, I trust me guys, there really is a huge gap in terms of how many people are there creating, understanding this content in the first place and creating it in for these platforms, uh, and how many people who are there out there thirsty for this kind of knowledge. There is a huge mismatch and a huge opportunity there. So one thing that immediately comes to mind, once again with the Agama Shastras that I quickly touched upon, is the entire science of building a temple. You visit one of these ancient temples, be it Madurai or Kanchi, especially down south, because north, unfortunately, did not have as much stability and they took a lot of beating. So one of these South Indian temples, if you have not yet visited, I urge you to visit them. They will blow you away. It's immense. The precision in which they are built, the entire structure of the temple, and how it aligns itself with the geometric axis, the magnetic north and south, and the geometric north and south. It's beyond brilliant. So with again more and more content creation platforms becoming available, uh, there are some concerns in the content creator community about these automatic content generation platforms, right? Like ChatGPT, DALI, Midjourney, all of this stuff. Trust me, they are going to be a tool in the hands of creators. They're not going to replace creators, because creativity is something that is very human. So how the creators make use of it is what is how these uh, automatic content generators are put to use. They don't decide what kind of music we consume or what kind of visuals we look at. It's the humans creating it, and